In college, a couple of broke students would frequently meet at Denny's for $5 pancakes. The subject of discussion? Films, and how they impacted our lives, and the dreams of someday seeing our stories on the silver screen. As friends, we each saw ourselves in our production roles and supported our filmmaking endeavors. I was a 21-year-old filmmaker enduring a life crisis. I had just graduated college with a bachelor's in film, had no job, and worst of all, nobody saw my movies. As a graduation gift, my father and I traveled to Greece for a month-long vacation. On the 14-hour flight there, I stared at the seat in front of me, dreading to return, fearing to get a job that was unrelated to the creative process. I stared at the seat in front of me for hours, contemplating my life upon return. I came to the realization that I struggled with making movies. 4 years with no results, other than friends with like-minded interests. In that moment, I imagined a life without filmmaking and decided to no longer pursue the craft. An hour into the flight, I asked myself why I was even interested in making movies in the first place. And I began reflecting. Movies are a source of enlightenment that provide insight on how to overcome the troubles of our lives. Creating projects and collaborating with others was fun. And isn't that what life was all about? I changed my thinking and realized I can be remembered for the guy who made memorable films or the guy who never quit. With both outcomes, at least I can tell people I made films. I feared a full-time job and a comfortable lifestyle, believing that comfort without risk was an excuse for not trying anything new. Living the same life every day was not something to be remembered by, but impacting the world and promoting knowledge is. A comfortable lifestyle seemed easy to obtain, but not many people can make movies, let alone create worlds from their imagination. So it was decided. I think I'm going to give film one last shot, but this time I'm going to have a long-term plan. My long-term plan was to write a short film and a feature film. I started to imagine what I wanted from making these projects. My short films will be in many festivals around the world, and I will sell them. I don't know how, but it was a set goal, and when I returned from Greece, I would put all of my focus in making that short film. During this time, I decided to apply for the master's program. My knowledge was limited in the humanities, and I chose the major because it encompassed many subjects that would force me to learn more about the world. I already knew about filmmaking, but humanities would be an exploration that could only enhance my storytelling abilities. We were ready to shoot our festival-ready short film, Last Beat, about a young soldier venturing to redeem a memory of a fallen comrade in order to complete a music composition. His former trauma questions war and the impact for a purposeful future. Last Beat was inspired by a childhood friendship with an ex-Marine. He told me war isn't about winning or losing. Sometimes you lose a friend, and oftentimes you could lose yourself. Classical music also interested me, and was a large part of my childhood. Contrasting war with music could create an ethereal experience. Last Beat became a war drama shot on a shoestring budget of $500. We were unable to afford quality sound recording, so most of the film remained silent. We also did not have access to monitors, so directing was through the viewfinder of the camera. The director of photography and I planned extensively, drawing out every shot of the film that spanned to 40 pages of content for a running time less than 5 minutes. The film was in its editing phase. Everything we envisioned was captured, but something felt out of place. The director of photography and then editor thought half of the film should be in black and white. It was 2 against 1, and with a flip of a coin, I took their advice. As a result, Last Beat won several small and large festivals. One premiere received a 2-minute standing ovation, while indie critics wrote positive reviews. A few things were learned. Simplicity is the strongest form of storytelling, and collaboration was key to bringing those stories to life. The goals I set on that flight to Greece were beginning to come true, but now the focus was redirected on a more ambitious project. Open Roads, a science fiction adventure set in the burnt landscapes of California. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman on a motorcycle must deliver an important box in order to save those who remain on Earth. Open Roads was inspired by the childhood experiences of riding motorcycles and the impending challenges of climate change. Serving as co-director with longtime collaborator, the director of photography, we shot the entire film after the onset of the forest fires ranging through California. There were many stunts, including capturing footage of a woman on a motorcycle racing at high speeds, and due to our limitations, we could not obtain a crane or vehicle to support a steady camera, so hanging off a side of a moving vehicle was the alternative. With a few dangerous tactics and trick photography, we were able to capture what we envisioned. Much like Last Beat, we played multiple roles from set design to creating costumes for the characters. Open Roads had a moderate festival run, receiving praise about its unique spectacle achievement. Open Roads was a challenging film, spanning over 8 different locations. The budget was low, but it placed me into the mindset of what directing is actually like. I was nearing the end of the graduate program, with a master's in humanities. Making another short film sounded more interesting than writing a thesis paper. I was placed into the directing chair yet again, facing many new challenges. The largest, trying to convince the professors to approve my abstract short film about a lighthouse keeper who discovers a boy washed ashore his cliffside home and the wartime struggles that threaten their identity. The Lightkeeper's story was inspired by the novel To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. Visions of a lighthouse on a cliffside home with crashing waves continually interrupted my dreams, which elicited memories from my childhood. After many rejections, I gave the professors an ultimatum that I would shoot the film in 2 months and provide footage. I realized that we would have to accelerate the process in order to finish on time. This film had a larger budget and more complications. The story traversed 3 different timelines that required historical accuracy. As a fantasy film, there were shots that required many computer-generated effects. The cast and crew was larger, and everything required more planning. Additional complications occurred. On the last day of shooting, our star drove off a cliff and got into a car accident that most would deem fatal. Our crew anxiously waited for weeks for a result, and he miraculously survived. With all of the complications, I was proud to see the project meet expectations. The Lightkeeper story had a wider festival run, and reviews about the stunning visuals and unique story put us back into the festival spotlight. I was featured in several local newspapers and successfully completed my master's program, graduating provost. Our 4th short film was titled Thieving Around. We decided to challenge ourselves with a new genre, romantic comedy, and experiment with shooting interior lighting. There was a lot more dialogue with this film, because now we had access to better equipment. Thieving Around was about a young couple who break into a house in order to impersonate the lives of the homeowners. The film was inspired by one of my favorite short stories, The Neighbors, by Raymond Carver. In this story, role-playing and how couples falsified their relationships with each other was a satirization of modern relationships. Days after completing the film, I was already on the flight to New York to attend the final screening of The Lightkeeper story. I arrived to the screening with praise from the judges and received 6 nominations, competing with well-established creators from around the world. I acquired distribution for The Lightkeeper story and sent the romantic comedy short film to the distributors as well. They wanted to buy the short film, despite it not having a festival run. Our short film Thieving Around ended up becoming the most profitable investment. They requested to see my other films and created an exhibition contract for all of the films to play in various territories around the world. If there is anything that I have learned in my early years in this industry, it was this: what you know has limitations of what you don't know. At a glance, it is surprising that all of my short films acquired distribution, despite having no-name actors, a shoestring budget, and limited production efforts. But it was the mindset from the beginning that surpassed all of those expectations. Each of us saw one another as the roles we desired, only to realize that they became the experiences that defined us. 2 years later, our films are still playing with continued payouts and contracts. Almost everything envisioned on that 14-hour flight came true, and now the feature film, also planned on that flight, is currently in production, so the adventure continues.